I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Hashim Tayuzi. I'm the Senior Manager of the Network Talent Initiative, and humbled to be in charge of the Community Fellowship Program. Last year, around this time, we launched the Community Fellowship, which in essence is a reboot of our Legacy Fellowship Program. We had lots of success last year and are thrilled to be able to offer it again to our brigade members in 2019. So the goal today is to give an overview of the Community Fellowship, talk about what some of the goals are for this year, and then open it up for question and answer. Okay? That sound good to everybody? All right, on the call, I would like a couple of special team members to introduce yourselves. Veronica, would you go first, please?
Hey everyone, my name is Veronica and I'm one of the program managers on the Brigade Network team. And I'm really excited to see the submissions for the Community Fellowship.
And Tom?
Hey everyone, I'm Tom. I'm the developer evangelist on the network team, and yeah, happy to help support on a technical way any applications as well.
Okay, thank you. And Meredith, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey everybody, my name is Meredith. I am the Senior Director of the Brigade Network. Have the privilege of working with Hashim and Veronica and Tom and Christopher every day. Yeah, very excited about the fellowship, very appreciative of the hard work Hashim has put in. Excited to hear about all of your questions and ideas. Eager to support you all as you're thinking through your application.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick screen share. So hang on there while I get that fired up. Just a quick overview of how this session might go. All right, first, a quick review of the fellowship, followed by sharing what some of the goals are for 2019 in the Community Fellowship Program, and then questions and answers, okay? So first, what is the Community Fellowship? Community Fellowship is about strengthening the relationship between our local brigade leaders and their local government partners to create conditions where changes can stick. We want to help transform government from the inside out. The fellows spend 6 months collaborating with their government staff, researching user needs, meeting with key stakeholders, and improving service delivery to vulnerable populations. And who are the Code for America Fellows? Fellows are experienced mid-career professionals from the community. They're engineers, designers, researchers, project managers, community organizers, storytellers, activists, you name it. There's room for everybody in the Community Fellowship. And they're professionals who are passionate about bringing a user-centered, iterative, data-driven approach to local government. So I just described everybody on the call. Last year, we had 4 project teams. We had one in Honolulu, one in San Jose, one in Austin, one in Asheville. This year, we're looking for 8 project teams. Now, these locations that you see on the screen are just representative of 8 project teams. There's nothing that's already a foregone conclusion. This could be you. I'm hoping that it is. What we want with the fellowship is that every city in the United States has community-based leadership supporting the principles and practices of delivery-driven government with an emphasis on equity and inclusion. That is what we're striving for with the Community Fellowship. So what do some of our goals look like in 2019? Well, as I mentioned, we want 8 fellowship teams. That'll be a total of 16 to 18 fellows, because teams can be built with 2 to 3 fellows. 2 is the recommended minimum. We want those teams to represent the diversity of brigades. So that includes locations, that includes race and ethnicity, gender, and skills. We need all fellowship teams to have a reliable government partner. In order to make this work stick, like we talked about earlier, government partnership is pivotal. In terms of the cost structure, in order to make this sustainable, we need government to pay approximately 70% or more of the cost. And we'll talk a little bit about how that might look a little later in the program. All fellows, this is new for 2019, all fellows will be paired with a mentorship team, which includes alumni fellows, CFA staff, and friends of CFA within the public interest tech sphere, which is really exciting. And all fellowship projects will build on the capacity of local government to use practices and principles of delivery-driven government in addressing the needs of vulnerable communities. This is via systems change within local government, and they will develop measures to track the progress. So as you're thinking about your project and what might be something you want to apply with, I want to emphasize that it needs to be centered around helping real people who need the help. Okay. Let me open it up for questions. And how do we want to do questions here, Veronica? What do you recommend? Should we use the Q&A
I
feature?
think at this point, folks can just unmute themselves and ask a question. If it starts getting too hectic, then we can switch to another method.
I have a question.
Please, go ahead.
What are some of the previous, you said there was 4 last year. What are kind of the projects that they worked on with their local government?
Great question. So in San Jose, they worked on ensuring that the 311 services delivery from the city was provided in an equitable and accessible fashion, especially to low-income residents within the city and those who did not primarily speak English in the home. And that was a user research-based project, 2 UX researchers, in fact, conducting and leading that work and helping the city of San Jose kind of explore things differently on how they deliver that very important service. In Austin, we had a team comprised of 2 developers who worked on aggregating and making accessible data on affordable housing within the Austin area. So prior to the fellowship, the data was housed in 4 or 5 different locations, and our team was able to make a unified source where government partners, as well as eventually the public, will be able to go in and see what's available on their own. In Asheville, the team there, 2 developers, went ahead and continued the work of a UNC Asheville professor who had been conducting a 10-year research project on racial disparities in the city of Asheville. And they were able to port that work from an analog presentation to a digital representation on the State of Black Asheville website. And in Honolulu, the team there were actually a designer and a project manager slash developer who were able to help the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation explore equitable means of engaging the public in the design of their high-speed rail project that's ongoing.
Okay, cool.
I want to share a quick document through the Zoom link, if that's okay. And this is our most up-to-date FAQ regarding the 2019 fellowship. And this is in process of being added to our website right now. Michelle, question?
I don't see. Oh, the FAQ is next. Sorry, I clicked on Veronica's. I apologize. Keep going.
All right. Another question that has come up previously is, how to communicate this to your government partner. So let's say you're working on a project and you have a government partner, but talking about this level of investment isn't something that you've done to this point, and you'd like to know, well, how can I approach them on this? We have created a brochure. Let's see if I can share that. It's not quite finished, however, we're shipping it because there's valuable information in it, and we don't want to sit on it, and we want to make sure that we provide all of the resources we can. So this brochure that I'm about to paste into the chat is something that you can use to help facilitate those conversations. It talks about the things that we discussed at the beginning of this call, what the fellowship is, who the fellows are, but it also talks about what a good government partner looks like, what to expect as a government partner, and what the cost of the fellowship involves. So please feel free to take a look at those as well. Are there other questions that folks have that they'd like to raise? And I should add that even though we have an all-star team here with Tom and Veronica and Meredith, we may not have the answers, so if it's okay, we will take down the question and get back to you if that is the case. All right, I see some folks accessing the documents. Wonderful. Let me ask Meredith, would you like to add in anything that we haven't covered or emphasize something?
Yeah, well, let's see. I'd be eager to hear from folks on kind of why they joined the Q&A, if they have specific questions they want to work through, or if they have ideas of projects in mind and just want to use the team as a sounding board for what you should be thinking about relative to the projects. If there's any recommendations that we have, if there's, we can use this space for that as well. I'd emphasize a couple things. Intentionally built in is quite a bit of flexibility into the fellowship. So while an ideal situation might be you've got two rock star people who have different skill sets, who are able to commit full time with a great government partner that's very well resourced. There's some other models that the fellowship can take too, and we intentionally haven't been overly prescriptive in the form that can take, because we want to allow for flexibility in both the fellow experience as well as the government partner experience. So maybe you've only got capacity to commit part-time, and you and someone else is going to be full-time, or maybe a couple of you want to be part-time. So we've built in some flexibility for that. We've built in some flexibility in the government funding structure. Again, that's intentional because we understand that some communities, some governments are much more well-resourced than others. So in that brochure that Hashim shared, there's some different models or examples for what that funding structure could look like. There's also some opportunity maybe to bring in third-party organizations, well-resourced nonprofits that are helping to supplement some of the funding from the local government. And of course, Code for America is providing resources on our end as well. So I want to communicate that we're intentionally trying to leave space for different kinds of projects, because we know that no one city, no one community, no one fellow is going to look exactly the same. So all that to encourage you in whatever you're thinking about. There's probably ways that we can help you try and accommodate it to create a good application. So eager to chat through those things that you're thinking about right now. Again, would emphasize the piece about vulnerable populations. So we want to make sure that in fellowship work, we are prioritizing equity and inclusion. So that means ensuring folks who need services most are the folks that we are working with to design services with, and to make sure government works first and foremost for folks who need those services most. So that should be kind of at the heart of the projects that you're thinking about. I guess those are the 10 cents that I would add right now, but yeah, eager to hear from folks if they have thoughts and questions.
Yes, Michelle.
I always have questions. I'm not so sure about this, but for the last fellowship, the facts stated that government partnerships were preferred, but community partnerships were also permitted in the application. Is that still the case?
Great question. Yes, absolutely. Community organizations, non-government organizations are welcome as the primary partner. We do strongly want some type of buy-in from local government in order to make sure that we are able to get the traction that the fellowship projects tend to need and benefit from. So perhaps the primary funder is a community organization. We still would like to make sure that we have that tie-in with government. And if you don't have that, and this is, Meredith and I were discussing this earlier, if you don't have that, perhaps we can help facilitate that. Okay, so I know, Michelle, you and I, we've talked, about this, but I want to open this up for others on the call as well. Our team is here for you. So if you, have some questions on how to, make the introduction or how to get to the next step in the process, by all means, if it's not an FAQ, not in the brochure, just reach out directly so that we can assist.
I'll ask a question machine just to
Okay.
get us going. If I think this sounds like an amazing opportunity, but don't think my government is going to be able to put up the resources in this amount of time, think that the budgeting process is going to take a while, should I start thinking about next year?
That is a great question, Meredith. I'm so happy that you asked. Absolutely. Last year, this was a pilot, right? So there was a lot unknown. We were testing things, trying to figure out what worked, including trying to figure out if the community fellowship worked. Well, we know that it works, and very excited to say that it's here this year and it will be here next year. So if you feel that all things considered, this timeline is not expansive enough in order for you to pull it off in 2019, please start planning for 2020. Okay, so we have the resources, we have the team in place. Let's go ahead and have those conversations and get the ball rolling so that when next year rolls around, if this is not your year, next year you're ready.
Hashim, a question had come in from Gregory asking, how do we navigate pitching an existing project we are passionate about versus applying for a project that matches the needs / wants of funding our project with our local government partner?
Yes, that is an excellent question. I think first and foremost, the work that you intend to do as a fellow needs to be something that you're passionate about. Let me expand on that, because it's hard work. It is an amazing experience, and I think all of our 2018 fellows will attest to that, and they've provided some tremendous feedback. But to a T, they have all also indicated the challenge involved. I mean, there are lots of things in terms of, access to resources, or the existing, bureaucracy, or the pace at which the folks that you'll be working with are used to operating, or making sure that you're able to reach the communities that you want to co-design the work with, and that you have a strong footing and credibility. Like, there are so many different things that come into play, not to mention that it's only a 6-month window, right? So in order to get the most of the experience and make the most impact, it has to be something that you're passionate about first and foremost. So if that project doesn't align with what is being presented, I think there needs to be kind of a balance that's performed before you proceed. I will say this though, perhaps it's not the project you're most passionate about, but you're still passionate about it, then I would say apply. All right, what other questions do we have? Hi, Marie, do you have a question?
Hi. I don't know yet. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Running a bit late.
Oh, it's quite all right.
I can't see what's been on the chat before because it just showed up blank. So I don't know if what's been covered and stuff, but I will think of a question. I will definitely ask it.
Okay.
Actually, I do have one question. I was wondering, what has there been before, and what's the kind of guideline in terms of if we get extra funding from other organizations? So I was talking with Nina about whether we could sort of help get more money through grants at the county, LA County level and things like that. I was just wondering if that had been done, and do they have to be part of the application, or can we get it later and it just gets added to the pot, or how does it work?
Yeah, Meredith, feel free to chime in here, but I would say that as long as the kind of the baseline funding is accounted for in the application process, we're you're good to move forward. If additional funding comes in that allows you to cover either the remainder of the project costs or even do additional things within the scope of the project, I think that would be welcome.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Michelle?
I have plenty of questions. So if we, do we have to have the money in hand, the funding in hand? Do we have to say we have, someone has signed a contract on the dotted line and we have these funds for sure? What does the status of the funding have to be? Can we say we have these 3 grants we're applying to, or, how in between those,
Yes.
in between those 2 extremes, what is where is a good place to start nestling in?
Good question. So the 3 grants and then signed contract, we don't really want to be in either of those, although if you have a signed contract, then that's not a bad place to be, but really we want to know that there is a commitment and an ability to pay for the financial contribution necessary from the government or non-government partner, depending on the way that your project is structured. So if we think about the timeline, which is in the FAQ, right? Timeline is there. Timeline. There it is. Okay. So the applications end March 31st, right? That means you need to have a commitment from your partner that, okay, they're going to be able to fund this work, but they don't actually have to hand over the money to us or to you or anyone at that point, because the fellowship doesn't actually start until the last week of May, which is the Code for America Summit. So that's the time that really the money needs to be made available so that we can start paying for all the travel, because we do plan this year to bring the 2019 fellows into Oakland so that they can be announced at the Code for America Summit. Okay.
We also have some sample contracts that are that are in the works. So those will be added to the frequently asked questions so that if your government partner or partners you're talking to want that level of detail, we'll have a couple different versions that you can provide them. And I would say probably within the next 2 days, where those are going through our contracts and legal team, all those fun boxes you've got to make sure you check when it comes to contracts. We'll
So much fun.
as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I have another question. So I currently, I work a full-time job, but I'm still interested in a fellowship. And I see that, you were talking about part-time. What does the time commitment on a fellowship look like? Would I have enough time with a full 8 to 4 job? Would I have time to be able to also commit enough time here?
That is a slightly more complex question than it may sound like at first. And I will do my best to answer and then tag some of my teammates to assist if necessary. So it largely is going to depend on a number of factors. One, what is your capacity to work a full-time job coupled with the additional workload of the fellowship, okay, which, as I indicated, can be quite challenging, definitely rewarding beyond belief, but it is a lot of work. And then two, you have to make sure that you have the ability to work with your partners. So if you're partnering with, community organizations and with government, what's your availability to make sure that you're able to, meet, have important dialogue, exchange communication, that type of thing. And then also, we have the travel that is part of the work, which is we bring you into Oakland, San Francisco in the beginning. We have Brigade Congress. We have another convening at a yet to be determined location. And then we have a closing ceremony convening in San Francisco. So as long as, individually you can manage your schedule and take care of all of those responsibilities, I would say that it's still open to you. Probably won't be, a cakewalk, but I would say it's doable.
Okay.
I think it also might depend on if you've got a partner within your project whom you work well with, who you could trust, who might have the capacity to be full-time, or maybe there's a couple people. You want a team of 3. Our fellowship this year allows for teams of 3 as well. So that's another factor to consider. Do you have a couple other folks that you trust, that you work well with, that you could lean on, and that could carry a lot of the load?
Great call. And to add to that, I should share, last year we did have a nice mixture of full-time and part-time fellows. And it seemed to work well as long as all of those bases were covered that Meredith and I just talked about. The one key call out that I want to make sure that is crystal clear going into this year is the travel requirement. We'll make sure that the dates that are provided are kind of blocked off in your calendar if you plan to apply, because it's very important that we have you, present so that you can experience, participate, learn, and contribute with the rest of the cohort.
Okay. Just to clarify, so the travel dates for the fellows would be Summit, which is the fellowship launch, and then Brigade Congress, which is another event, and then as well as the conclusion event that will take place wherever, right? Because I see the September to November site visits. That's like you guys coming out to us, right?
That's correct. There is another summit that last year took place at Harvard, and we are expecting it to happen again, but it is yet to be confirmed. So that's why it's kind of to be determined.
Okay.
But that would be the 4th travel requirement.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
I have another question, if I may. I've been I need to talk to a government partner, and I know that in the past, a lot of the time, the people started the community fellowship were actually the government agencies or the departments who had a need, and so it's kind of easy to sell them on that. But when it's us approaching a government department, and with the way it's set up, I can see the benefits of doing the program and the traveling and all that for me or for a fellow. But how would you explain to the department or the agency what's in it for them to not only pay me to do the job, but in addition pay extra for the program? And I've been trying to sort of think about the best way to present it, what advantages is for them and what value they get out of it through the community fellowship. And I'd love to hear your take on it.
Well, thank you for that question. And I just went ahead and resubmitted the FAQ and brochure into the Zoom chat. One of the limitations is if you send that out and then others join, they don't get that. So I went ahead and put that back in there. But great question. And I think, that there are some different ways to approach that. I mean, definitely the Legacy Fellowship program started in the government agency and then actually was completely separate from our brigade network. This is, we're tapping into the talented members of our brigade network and trying to help local government basically level up, right? And so what I would say is if there is a challenge or seems to be a little bit of an obstacle in establishing that connection, then that's where you can tap us on the shoulder, and then we can reach out on your behalf and make that introduction. Be very happy to do that, for our brigade members to establish that connection with the local government. And that might help. I think it actually will help a lot.
I have a question.
Hey, Laura.
Hi. I don't understand Code for America's contribution. So I'm looking at the cost of the community fellowship in Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. So each of those show how much the government agency is putting to this fellowship. I don't understand what Code for America. So, so even, for example, in Tier 3, does that basically just mean that the local government is paying Code for America $10,000 for a government employee to be a fellow? And that's the entire team and that's the entire project? Does that question, do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. Let me just get to that area on the
Okay.
FAQ. All right. So Tier 3, limited investment, limited ability to pay, existing government thought. Yeah, so basically what that is outlining is that an existing government employee becomes a fellow and they contribute a portion of the program management fee. So the true cost of the fellowship is about $100,000 per project, okay? And so there are different ways that we try to keep the cost down to make this accessible to all governments.
I understand that theory. I think, at least for me, the tier piece is confusing because the way this reads to me, the way that I understand this is that in a Tier 3 situation, the entire team is the one government employee.
No, so I think I understand your question, Laura. Let me just chime in and see if I can help clarify.
I think it might be, if there's the piece it might be helpful to have the other piece of in Tier 3, the local government is contributing this, but CFA is contributing this, which makes a whole team.
Yeah.
Is that what we're going to get into, Meredith?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Yep. So these are basically some different examples of what the structure could look like. So I think, as you know, what we're trying to do is accommodate governments with less ability to pay and sort of spread out some of those resources across the different fellowship programs. So that way we can still accommodate those who either have a limited procurement threshold or for whatever other reason there's a limited ability to pay. And we're balancing those with with local governments that have more ability to pay, more resources, maybe they're able to cover the full cost of the fellowship, and that allows us to bring on more folks who aren't able to do that. So what we're, I think, trying to call out here is that where there is an existing government employee who is joining as a fellow, like that's already cost, that's already value that the government partner is providing, right? Because they're effectively covering that person's salary. So that's a contribution that would, add up. Sorry, I'm like struggling with how to phrase this, but that would contribute towards the full real cost of the fellowship, if that makes sense. But there's also ability for Code for America to come in and help cover some costs for like other fellowship partners.
I think that's the piece that would be helpful to see here is this is just talking about what the government's paying, and so it's hard to understand what the Code for America contribution is the way that it's currently laid out.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
It does. I think the tough answer is that it's gonna depend, right? And so this document is intended for the government partner, which is why we wanted it to be. Are you looking at the brochure?
Yeah, which I mean, so I was about to send it to my director, but I think it would be hard for her to understand what we would get from this. This is just like what we're paying. It's not clear. This is the investment. Do you know what I'm saying? That Michelle's got her hand up, so she might have a better. I don't know if she has another question or she has another way of. Another question. Okay.
No, I was wondering if it might be phrased as an in-kind contribution.
Yeah, there you go. That's the language I'm looking for.
I don't know if you can change that on the brochure, but an in-kind I understood the budget last year a lot better once I understood how the in-kind contributions fit in. So also, I think you have a repeated section on the brochure.
Okay.
Isn't the fact that Code for America is providing management and consulting and all this other stuff? I mean, I think wasn't your question the government agency is paying for the programmer, so why anyway? I mean, they're employees, so why should they become a fellow? And it's the answer that Code for America will help with management, design, consulting, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we do with the fellows is we provide training, on the user-centered, iterative, data-driven approach that we use in-house and what we've used over the years with all of our fellows. So we've had a chance to kind of refine it and create a process to where folks can pick it up and hit the ground running with the methodologies that have been proven to work. We also provide ongoing, project management and stakeholder management as well. So when we do those site visits, it's not just coming to, shake hands and kiss babies. We actually are getting the decision makers in the room so that the fellows have the support that they need to ensure that the project is making the impact that they set out to make in the beginning.
If just to have a very clear breakdown of what costs what, before you then explain that it's flexible and these other ways it can, just to say, this is the management fee for the program, this is how much, the salary for a full-time fellow is. Just have a small, it can be just a small graphic. It'll be like, this is the cost for this, this is the cost for this, this is the cost for this. And I think, and then sort of explaining that there can be flexibility around it. But yeah, as I think there's definitely value. Obviously, we know the value in terms of the project. I mean, for me, I come from the opposite extreme, is that if I pitch myself, what's in it for them to not just hire me if they're paying me anyway? That's that's why it's how do you explain the contributions? And I think that they're also very budget focused, and already just talking to the housing authority, she was already thinking, okay, how do I fit in my budget and exactly the right thing? And so that's what, just to say, this is how much this costs, this is how much we give you, this is just having those details, I think will really help people see the breakdown of it. And I know it's complicated because there's so many different iterations of what it might look like, but having some sort of more clearer breakdown of the numbers and what they account for exactly might be helpful.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I appreciate like the 2-pager and the succinctness. That's really good. But you could definitely have like a whole other thing. Like if people get past the 2-pager and they're ready for more information, because like I was about to listen this to my director, we are used to completing much longer applications. So just to have like we're in government, like that's not a barrier. So once you have this, for the when people are actually getting ready for the application, it doesn't have to just all fit on 2 pages.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Marie, just to get back to what you said about what's to stop the government from hiring you, that is actually a great question. That's something that came up last year. And so I just want to touch on that because it's an important topic. So one, there's nothing stopping government from hiring you. In fact, the community fellowship is tied into our Code for America Talent Initiative, which is about addressing the talent gap at the intersection of technology and government. So if you were hired in government, that is something that we celebrate. And this program is really designed for situations where they don't have the capacity to bring someone on or don't know the value of bringing on the type of skills of the technologists that we have within our network. And we are, kind of showing, what's possible, building capacity and building that movement around this. So that's kind of where this comes into play. But if there is a situation where anyone on our team can be hired directly into government, by all means, without the fellowship, let me know how I can help you do that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just because of the setup and the idea that they would have, the way I understood it, and this is just literally before we talked and before I understand, is that Code for America was contributing part of the fellowship salary. And so that's where the encouragement was coming from. It's okay, we have some backup and we're providing that. And then we help you, we put a bit of a money where your mouth is. And so you'll see they'll cost less to you, but we'll get, and that's where, and I think the jump to saying you're going to pay the full salary. And in addition, you have to pay us to train them. I think it's going to make it harder potentially for some actors to say, well, just to see the value. I think it's just going to be tougher. And it's not a judgment of value on the project itself, which I think having took the fellows, I know it's really great. I think it's just if people go from zero, from no connection to Code for America, as is the case here in Santa Monica, they know us, they know me, and it's like, but then to have to go say you need to hire me and also pay extra for me, then that's just going to be, one more thing it's one more hurdle, I guess. And so it's just, again, I'm just it's very early stages and they've been very open to it. And I'm going to go back to them with the brochure, and the brochure is going to be really helpful already. But that's kind of where where I'm trying to anticipate how to answer the questions, basically.
Good points.
Yeah, so I think that's hopefully where some of the flexibility comes in, where the government partner you're talking to might say, absolutely, like we'll bring on you and a partner. Well, as temporary employees, we're going to cover your salary costs, but that's all we're able to do. That's where then Code for America can come in and say, great, this is a great project. We've got the ability to cover the rest, and we're going to do that. And then that's the arrangement that we would make with your government partner, and we'd have sample contracts that you can send them ahead of time. And I was messaging Laura a bit about this because I wanted to close the loop on this discussion. What we want to have happen is government partners to actually commit to pay what they are truly able to pay. So that's partly why in the document at this stage we don't have and in this case Code for America pays this much, and in this case Code for America pays this much, because we want governments to be able to own what they are truly able to commit, because in order for us to be equitable and inclusive in this project, we've got people with the resources to be able to devote to it actually commit those resources. So that's, I think, part of the balancing act we're trying to strike is provide the appropriate level of support to make the successful projects happen on both ends, on both the government partner end and on Code for America's end. And we can play around with it. I mean, the beauty of Code for America approach is that everything's always very iterative. So we can keep iterating on all these resources. We can iterate on all kinds of different things for whatever is going to be most useful. And please do be vocal about what kinds of additional stuff is going to be useful. But that's sort of that balancing act we're trying to strike.
And I totally appreciate as well that people, it's relatively new and people come at it from different perspective. And I think some people already have a relationship with that department, or the department already knows or has worked with Code for America. In some cases, there will be a zero starting point. And that's where I think it just, so the level of buy-in will come from different places and will be different. And that's, I guess, all I wanted to flag up is like how to sort of go. And that's why it's useful to have these conversations, just to kind of get some info from everybody involved so that we can build the best argument for it, definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, in those conversations, let us know how we can be of assistance as they progress. Are there additional questions? Michelle? No? Let's scroll through the list of folks on the participant panel. All right, no other questions? All right, I don't have a date for this, but I'm going to go ahead and put this out here that I think we'll have another call in the not too distant future to discuss any additional questions that might come up. And also, I would really like to provide a forum for folks to kind of test their ideas for their projects if there are some questions about them, so that we can really help you make sure that your project submissions are as strong as possible.
I do have one more question.
Yeah.
Not application related, and I might have missed this earlier in the call. I've heard from San Jose some about their project. They were on our design interest group call last Friday. Will the other three brigades, other three fellowships kind of do a report out and provide information somewhere about what they did?
So the 2018 cohort, will there be a report?
Yeah. Yes.
So one of the things that we learned in 2018 is that we have an opportunity to ensure that the fellows, as part of the design of the program, are routinely reporting on the activities. So we are working to kind of summarize the activities of the different fellowship teams, but I will say that it was not necessarily built in to the way that the fellows were operating. Okay, so in 2019, we do have a cadence and routine established for blog post and a final report out that did not necessarily exist in 2018. We will do our best to summarize those activities for you.
Okay, like just a fellowship showcase one webinar time would be really awesome. If they, because I mean, most of them had materials at Congress anyway. So for people who may not have been able to join Congress, but yeah, that would be great, because like sharing that across the network is really valuable. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, and one thing that I failed to mention, and I apologize, is that we do plan on having the 2018 fellows present at Summit, at the Code for America Summit. So that'll actually be something in the near future where they'll be able to report on their work and experience as well.
I think Hashim might be underselling himself a little bit, has put together a very comprehensive 2018 fellowship report back. So I won't put him on the spot to share that with you all, but some iteration of that. There are quite a bit of materials, assets, lessons learned that I think can be useful in some form. In addition to the fellowship webinar showcase, which I think is a good idea.
This is recording, Meredith, and I did not want to be on the recording saying that I was going to put that document out there, but I will be adapting it. But since you went ahead and spilled the beans, I will be adapting it for a broad audience, and you'll be able to get a good sense of what the different teams experienced and what they accomplished. And that will be coming in the not too distant future. All right, are there any additional questions? I want to make sure that we are aware of the resources we have. I just got word from Fritz at our San Francisco office that the FAQ is updated on our website in case you lose the link that you're already accessing somehow. The brochure needs a few more tweaks, and thank you for those who pointed out that there was a duplicate section. But as Meredith pointed out, we work in a very iterative way, and I'm a big proponent of the phrase, just ship it. So we didn't want to hold on to it. We want to make sure that you had access to it. Got rid of the duplicate section. There's a little more tweaking to it, and then we'll figure out how to broadly distribute it. It will be linked on the website as well. If you have follow-up questions, you can reach out to fellowship@codeforamerica.org, and you can reach out to any of us individually via email or on Slack. This recording will be made available within the next 48 hours or so. Let's see, anything that I forgot, Veronica?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, Meredith?
I don't think so. Just emphasizing that we're here as a resource, eager to talk through projects with you, help make introductions or vouch for you with government partners, whatever we can do to be useful.
Okay, all right, so thank you very much everyone for donating an hour of your time. All right, I'm very excited about the potential of all of these projects. Please let us know how we can help. We're here to make these successful. All right, until next time, thank you.